The world changed forever between the late 18th and early 19th centuries. Smoke billowed from new factories, machines clattered day and night. And cities swelled with workers and innovation. This was the Industrial Revolution, a powerful transformation that turned Britain from a small island nation into the heart of a global empire. But how exactly did industrial advances fuel Britannia's rise to imperial dominance? What were the key inventions, economic shifts, and social changes that linked industry with empire? Hello and warm greetings to you. Thank you for joining this fascinating journey into the Industrial Revolution and its crucial role in building the British Empire. The Industrial Revolution was not just about machines and factories. It reshaped economies, societies, and the very power structures of the world. As we explore this story, consider this question: did the Industrial Revolution make empire inevitable, or was it the empire that drove industrial growth? I look forward to your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's dive into this transformative era. In the waning years of the 18th century, Britain found itself on the cusp of a transformation. This was the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, a period marked by profound technological innovation. The forces driving this revolution were varied, yet together they ignited a shift from agrarian life to industrial power. And a new era of growth and prosperity began to take shape. This was the dawn of a new world, full of promise and possibility. A period marked by profound technological innovation and social change. The forces driving this revolution were varied, yet together they ignited a shift from agrarian life to industrial power. And a new era of growth and prosperity began to take shape. This was the dawn of a new world, full of promise and possibility. A period marked by profound technological innovation and social change. The forces driving this revolution were varied, yet together they ignited a shift from agrarian life to industrial power. Beneath the landscape lay vast reserves of coal and iron. Raw materials that would fuel the engines of progress. Coal, black and abundant, powered the furnaces and boilers, while iron became the backbone of machinery and infrastructure. These resources gave Britain a critical advantage, providing the essential elements needed to build factories, machines, and transportation networks. At the same time, advances in agriculture were quietly reshaping society. New farming techniques and tools improved yields, freeing many workers from the demands of rural labor. This surplus labor force sought new opportunities in growing towns and cities, where factories were beginning to emerge as centers of production. The shift from fields to factories was not merely economic. It signaled a profound change in the rhythms of daily life. Among the great innovators of the era was James Watt, whose improvements to the steam engine around 1776 dramatically increased its power and efficiency. Watt's enhancements allowed steam engines to drive machinery in textile mills and other factories, untethering industry from traditional water sources. This breakthrough meant factories could be located closer to raw materials and markets, accelerating industrial growth. The combined effect of abundant resources, a ready workforce, and technological advances created a fertile environment for rapid change. Towns expanded, transport systems evolved, and new products flooded markets. Britain was becoming the workshop of the world, a place where innovation met opportunity. This period laid the foundation for economic and social transformations that would echo through the centuries. It sparked urbanization, altered class structures, and challenged traditional ways of life. The Industrial Revolution was not just about machines, it was about a new era of human endeavor, ambition, and adaptation. As factories hummed and chimneys rose, Britain stepped into a future shaped by the relentless force of industry. The changes of the late 1700s would ripple across continents, influencing how societies produced, worked, and connected. In this story of invention and transformation, the late 18th century stands as a pivotal moment. It reminds us that the engines of change often start quietly, beneath the surface, before reshaping the world in ways once unimaginable. The dawn of industrial change in Britain was the beginning of a journey toward modernity, a journey defined by creativity, resilience, and the pursuit of progress. In the late 18th century, a quiet revolution began to transform the very fabric of society. The spinning jenny, invented in the 1760s, was one of the earliest sparks. This machine allowed a single worker to spin multiple threads at once, dramatically increasing productivity. Soon after, the water frame emerged, harnessing the power of flowing water to drive spinning machinery, further accelerating production. The power loom followed, automating the weaving of cloth with mechanical precision. Factories sprouted across the British landscape, often near rivers or streams that powered the new machinery. Workers left their homes to gather under one roof, where long hours and strict discipline defined daily life. This shift from cottage industries to centralized factories marked a turning point in economic and social structures. The scale of production grew exponentially. Textile output soared as cotton, wool, and other fibers were transformed into cloth faster and cheaper than ever before. Britain quickly emerged as the global leader in textile manufacturing, its fabrics reaching markets on every continent. This booming industry not only fueled domestic prosperity but also intensified trade connections worldwide. Ports bustled with ships laden with British textiles, while raw materials like cotton poured in from colonies and trading partners. The industry became a cornerstone of Britannia's expanding empire. The growth of the textiles sector spurred advancements in related fields as well. Innovations in transportation, banking, and labor organization developed alongside the factories. The rise of the textile industry helped ignite the broader industrial revolution, reshaping societies and economies. Yet, this transformation was not without cost. Factory life introduced new challenges for workers, including long hours, harsh conditions, and the disruption of traditional communities. The pace of change demanded adaptation, and resistance and reform movements soon emerged. Despite these tensions, the textile revolution laid the foundation for modern industrial society. It demonstrated how technology could multiply human effort and redefine production, setting patterns that would influence countless industries to come. By the 1830s, Britannia's dominance in textiles was undeniable. The nation's economic strength, driven in large part by factory-made cloth, bolstered its position on the world stage. This newfound power supported imperial ambitions, financing expansion and control over global resources. The legacy of the textile revolution is woven into the fabric of history. It tells a story of ingenuity and transformation, of progress intertwined with struggle. It reminds us how the relentless drive for innovation can reshape lives and shape the destiny of nations. The textile revolution was more than the mechanization of cloth, it was the beginning of a new world. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, a revolution quietly transformed the way people, goods, and ideas moved across the land and sea. As industrial centers grew and economies expanded, the demand for efficient transportation became vital. The story begins with canals, man-made waterways that linked factories, mines, and ports in an intricate network. One of the earliest and most significant of these was the Bridgewater Canal, completed in 1761. This canal connected coal mines in Lancashire to the bustling city of Manchester, dramatically lowering the cost and time of transporting coal. It sparked a wave of canal building across Britain, weaving waterways through the landscape and enabling the steady flow of raw materials and manufactured goods. While canals provided new routes through the countryside. The dawn of the steam locomotive would soon redefine land travel entirely. In 1814, George Stephenson successfully demonstrated a steam-powered locomotive. A machine capable of pulling heavy loads over long distances at unprecedented speeds. This invention opened the door to the railway age, where iron tracks stretched across the nation, connecting towns and cities like never before. The rapid spread of railways in the 1830s and 1840s transformed Britannia's landscape and economy. Railways shortened travel times, lowered transportation costs, and facilitated the movement of large quantities of goods. They connected remote areas to industrial hubs and ports, creating new opportunities for commerce and communication. The railway boom extended beyond Britain, reaching into its colonies, where tracks laid new paths for imperial control and economic exploitation. As the rails stretched inland, the seas were also undergoing a transformation. Sailing ships, reliant on wind and weather, gradually gave way to steam-powered vessels. These steamships, fueled by coal, could travel faster, more reliably, and on fixed schedules. They revolutionized maritime trade, shrinking the distances between continents and opening new markets. The impact of steamships was not limited to commerce. Naval power depended increasingly on steam, allowing fleets to move with greater speed and flexibility. Britain's ability to project military strength across oceans was enhanced, reinforcing its status as a global empire. Together, canals, railways, and steamships created a transportation network that reshaped society. Goods moved from factories to markets with unprecedented efficiency. People traveled farther and faster, expanding horizons and connecting communities. It changed the rhythms of daily life, altered landscapes, and connected distant corners of the world. It set the stage for the modern age, where speed and connectivity became the currency of power and progress. From the quiet waterways of the Bridgewater Canal to the thunderous passage of steam locomotives and the steady churning of steamships across oceans was a period of remarkable innovation. It was a time when the barriers of distance began to crumble, and the world grew smaller, faster, and more interconnected than ever before. The story of the Industrial Revolution is not just one of machines and factories, but also of raw materials drawn from distant lands. As industry surged forward, its towering smokestacks and humming mills demanded a steady flow of resources, fueling a complex relationship between empire and economy that shaped the modern world. Britain, at the heart of this industrial transformation, relied heavily on its vast colonial network to supply the raw materials essential to its factories. From the sprawling plains of India came cotton, a soft yet vital fiber spun into textiles that clothed the world. The fields of America, particularly in the southern states, produced cotton in enormous quantities, feeding the insatiable demand of British mills. But cotton was only one piece of a larger puzzle. In the dense jungles of Southeast Asia, rubber trees yielded a sticky latex that became indispensable for the growing automotive and manufacturing industries. This rubber was harvested under colonial control, ensuring that British and European factories could meet the expanding needs of transportation and machinery. Africa, with its rich and diverse mineral wealth, contributed precious metals and minerals critical to industrial production. Gold, diamonds, copper, and other elements were extracted and transported to fuel economic growth. The control of these resources became not only an economic necessity but a strategic imperative. The drive to secure raw materials shaped colonial policy, military strategy, and diplomatic relations. Empires extended their reach into new territories, establishing outposts, plantations, and mines, all aimed at harnessing the wealth beneath the soil. The importance of these resources went beyond economics. Control over raw materials meant influence, power, and security. Nations that commanded these supplies could equip their armies, build their navies, and sustain their economies in times of peace and war. At the same time, the extraction and control of raw materials often came at great cost to local populations and environments. Indigenous societies faced profound changes, as traditional ways of life were disrupted by colonial enterprises. The landscapes themselves were transformed by mining, plantation agriculture, and infrastructure projects. Yet, the narrative of raw materials and colonial resources is also a story of innovation and adaptation. Industrial advances demanded new sources and methods of procurement, driving exploration and technological progress. The development of railways, steamships, and communication networks facilitated the movement of goods and information, shrinking the distances between colony and metropole. The pursuit of these resources was a key driver of imperial rivalry. Competition over territories rich in minerals, fertile lands, or strategic location intensified tensions among the great powers. Control of resource-rich colonies often became a flashpoint for conflict and negotiation. Throughout the 19th century, the symbiotic relationship between industry and empire shaped global history. Raw materials supplied the engines of growth, while empire provided the reach and control necessary to secure these vital commodities. This dynamic propelled Britain into a position of unparalleled economic and political power. The legacy of this era remains visible today. The patterns of resource extraction and trade established during this time have left lasting impacts on economies, societies, and environments around the world. The intricate links forged between colonies and industrial centers laid the foundation for the modern global economy. This story of raw materials and colonial resources reveals the complex forces behind industrialization and empire building. As the wheels of progress turned, the world became ever more connected. The raw materials harvested under colonial rule fed factories and fueled innovation, changing the course of history and defining an age of empire and industry intertwined like never before. By the mid-19th century, Britain stood at the forefront of a new industrial age, where factories transformed the very fabric of daily life. Mass production became the engine driving economic growth and social change, reshaping how goods were made, distributed, and consumed. Industrial factories churned out textiles, metal products, and tools on an unprecedented scale. Mechanized looms wove cloth faster and more efficiently than ever before. Steelworks and foundries produced machines and implements essential for both domestic use and expanding industries. These developments brought the promise of affordable products to a wider audience than ever before. Cheaper goods meant more than just savings, they fueled a growing culture of consumption. Households across Britain could now afford items that had once been luxuries. Everyday objects like clocks, cutlery, clothing became accessible, changing lifestyles and expectations. This surge in consumption extended beyond Britannia's shores, reaching its vast empire. Colonies absorbed British-made goods, connecting distant markets in a global web of trade. This expanding demand created a cycle of growth. More raw materials were needed to feed the factories, prompting Britain to deepen its economic reach. Resources from colonies flowed into industrial centers, while finished products returned to new markets eager for manufactured goods. This intricate exchange strengthened Britannia's position as a global economic powerhouse. The wealth generated by industry also played a strategic role. Revenues from booming factories and trade provided the financial foundation for maintaining and expanding the British Navy. The Navy was essential in protecting vital trade routes, securing sea lanes that linked Britain to its empire and the wider world. Naval dominance ensured that British goods could move safely, sustaining the flow of commerce that powered the industrial economy. Mass production and consumer goods were not just about economics. They signaled profound shifts in society. The rise of factories altered work patterns, drew people to cities, and changed the rhythms of everyday life. Consumer culture shaped identities, aspirations, and even social structures. As access to goods became a marker of status and progress, Britain's influence stretched across continents, driven by the twin forces of production and consumption. The factories of the mid-1800s were more than places of work. They were the heart of a transforming world, where technology, trade, and empire intertwined. The era of industrial might This story reveals how industry reshaped economies and societies, laying the groundwork for modern consumer culture. The rise of mass production and consumer goods marked a pivotal moment in history, a moment when Britannia's industrial strength and global connections forged a future defined by both opportunity and complexity. As the hum of machinery filled the air and goods flowed from factory floors to distant markets, the world was changing forever. The 19th century witnessed a transformation that reshaped Britain from a land of villages and farms into a nation dominated by sprawling cities. Factories rose like towering monuments of progress, their chimneys filling the sky with smoke. The promise of steady wages pulled families toward these new hubs of industry. Cities such as Manchester, Liverpool, and London swelled rapidly, their populations multiplying in a few short decades. This urbanization brought profound social change. Streets became crowded, and housing struggled to keep up with demand. Overcrowding, poor sanitation, and inadequate infrastructure created difficult living conditions for many workers. The emerging industrial workforce formed a new social class, distinct from the landed gentry and the old aristocracy. Factory owners and merchants accumulated wealth, fueling the rise of a powerful middle class. At the same time, working-class neighborhoods bore the brunt of industrialization's harsh realities. Despite hardships, cities became vibrant centers of innovation and culture. New ideas in science, engineering, and finance took root within urban spaces. Banks and stock exchanges thrived, enabling investment that further accelerated industrial and imperial expansion. The wealth generated by industrial cities translated into political influence. Reform movements gained momentum, pushing for better working conditions, public health measures, and expanded suffrage. These social and political shifts helped shape Britannia's evolving identity as a modern nation. Urban centers also served as nerve hubs for the growing British Empire. They housed administrative offices, trade networks, and transportation links that connected Britain to its colonies worldwide. The cities were the beating hearts of imperial power, organizing resources and policies that extended British influence globally. As factories hummed and railways spread, the British landscape changed forever. The tension between opportunity and adversity defined urban life. People navigated new social dynamics, forming unions, clubs, and communities that sought to improve their circumstances. This era laid the groundwork for many aspects of contemporary urban society. It highlights how economic growth and technological advancement can bring both progress and challenges. The story of 19th century urbanization is a story of resilience, adaptation, and transformation. Through the lens of British cities, we see the complex interplay between industry, society, and empire. The rise of urban life fueled Britannia's global ambitions while reshaping its social fabric. This chapter of history remains a vital part of understanding the modern world. From crowded tenements to grand public buildings, the cities of the industrial age tell a story of human endeavor and change. They stand as monuments to a century defined by growth, struggle, and the relentless pursuit of a new future. The Industrial Revolution was a turning point not only in manufacturing and society but also in the nature of warfare. As factories churned out new machines and materials, military technology advanced at an unprecedented pace. Innovations such as rifled guns, ironclad warships, and telegraph communication transformed the way armies and navies operated, giving Britain a distinct technological edge over rival powers and indigenous resistance. Rifled guns represented a major leap forward in weaponry. Unlike smoothbore muskets, rifled barrels impart a spin to the bullet, greatly increasing accuracy and range. This meant soldiers could engage enemies from greater distances with far more precision. The battlefield was no longer dominated by close-range volleys but shaped by long-range firepower, changing tactics and increasing the lethality of engagements. At sea, the introduction of ironclad warships revolutionized naval warfare. Wooden ships gave way to vessels armored with iron plates, resistant to cannon fire and capable of mounting heavier artillery. These ironclads were faster, more durable, and far more intimidating. Britain, with its extensive shipbuilding industry and access to iron and coal, quickly embraced this technology, ensuring its navy remained the dominant force on the oceans. The telegraph, another crucial innovation, transformed military communication. For the first time, messages could be sent almost instantaneously over long distances, allowing commanders to coordinate complex operations with speed and precision. This communication breakthrough enhanced the British Army and Navy's ability to respond to threats, coordinate movements, and maintain control over distant territories. These technological advantages extended Britain's power far beyond the battlefield. Superior weapons and communication systems enabled more efficient control of vast colonial holdings. The British military could suppress uprisings, manage supply lines, and project force across continents with a confidence born from cutting-edge innovation. In conflicts around the globe, these advances often proved decisive. Indigenous forces, equipped with older or less effective weapons, found themselves facing opponents whose rifles reached farther, whose ships could withstand more damage, and whose commanders could communicate faster. The technological gap widened the advantage of British forces, often tipping the balance of power. The industrial era's military innovations also influenced the design and strategy of warfare. Armies began to rely on rapid, coordinated movements supported by railways and telegraph lines. Navies no longer depended solely on wind and sail but on steam-powered ironclads that could patrol and dominate critical sea lanes with ease. This period marked a shift toward more modern forms of warfare, where technology and industrial capacity became as crucial as manpower and courage. Britain's ability to harness industrial power for military purposes underpinned its global dominance during the 19th century. Yet, these advances also brought new challenges. The destructive power of rifled guns and ironclads raised the stakes of conflict, making wars deadlier and more costly. The need for rapid communication and coordination demanded sophisticated organization and infrastructure. Through it all, Britannia's embrace of technological innovation reshaped the balance of power. The military strength born from the Industrial Revolution allowed Britain not only to defend its empire but to expand it, establishing control over vast territories and peoples around the world. This era stands as a testament to the profound impact technology can have on warfare and empire. It highlights how industrial progress and military power became intertwined, shaping history and defining the future of global conflict. Britain's story during this time is one of adaptation, ingenuity, and dominance, driven by the power of invention and the relentless march of progress. The legacy of these innovations is still felt today, echoing in the continued importance of technology in defense and the ever-evolving nature of military strategy. The impact of these innovations is a testament to the power of human ingenuity and the enduring spirit of progress. The rise of industrial wealth in Britain during the 19th century did more than power factories and mills. It laid the foundation for a vast and complex financial system that underpinned global trade and empire. This era witnessed the transformation of capital into instruments that shaped economies, connected continents, and secured Britain's place as the world's leading economic power. At the heart of this transformation were financial institutions that managed and multiplied wealth. The Bank of England financed ambitious imperial ventures and infrastructure projects that spanned the globe. Railways carved through jungles, ports expanded to welcome the increasing flow of goods, and telegraph lines stitched continents together, all funded by the steady flow of capital orchestrated by London's financiers. Banks, insurance companies, and trading firms grew in scale and sophistication, managing risks and investments that would have been unimaginable just decades before. Merchants and investors pooled resources, confident that their ventures were protected and supported by a robust financial framework. Insurance spread the risk of sea voyages, safeguarding the ships that carried Britain's goods to distant markets. The global trade networks that evolved were intricate and far-reaching. Britannia's factories produced goods that were shipped to colonies and markets in Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Raw materials flowed back in the opposite direction, creating a continuous cycle of commerce. This exchange was more than economic, it was a powerful force that shaped societies and cultures, linking people separated by oceans through the threads of trade. Trade companies operated as the engines of this network. Their ships crossed vast distances, braving storms and piracy to deliver goods and secure markets. These enterprises often acted as agents of empire, extending British influence into new regions while opening opportunities for commerce and investment. The financial strength behind these networks allowed Britain to outcompete rivals. Access to capital meant rapid expansion and adaptation, whether through building new infrastructure, funding technological innovation, or responding to crises. The ability to mobilize resources quickly gave Britain a strategic advantage in global commerce and politics. This financial power was not limited to private enterprise. Governments also relied heavily on financial institutions to support military and diplomatic efforts that protected trade interests. Loans and bonds funded wars and peacekeeping missions, illustrating the close relationship between money and power. Britain became the center of a global economy where money, goods, and information moved with unprecedented speed and scale. London's financial market set the tone for economic activity worldwide, influencing prices, investments, and policies across continents. Yet, this growth brought complexity and challenges. The interconnected nature of trade and finance meant that economic disturbances in one region could ripple globally. Financial crises tested the resilience of institutions and underscored the delicate balance of this vast system. Despite these challenges, the 19th century firmly established Britain as the financial capital of the world. Its economic empire was built not only on military might or colonial possessions but on the power to harness capital, manage risk, and connect markets across oceans. This era of financial growth reshaped the modern world. It created opportunities for wealth and development while also raising questions about control, inequality, and the costs of empire. The legacy of these networks is visible today in the global financial systems that continue to influence economies and politics. The story of finance and global trade networks is one of innovation, ambition, and interconnectedness. It reveals how capital flowed beyond borders, driving the engines of empire and industry. It is a narrative of how money became a force shaping history, linking distant places through the shared language of commerce and investment. As factories hummed and ships sailed, the unseen power of finance quietly but decisively shaped the 19th century. It was the backbone of empire and industry, the thread connecting the world's markets, and the foundation upon which Britannia's economic dominance was built. In the heart of the 19th century, Britain's industrial achievements became a source of immense national pride. Factories roared to life, producing goods that filled the homes of millions and sent ripples across the globe. This era of industrial success was not merely an economic revolution, it was a cultural awakening that shaped how Britain saw itself and its place in the world. The British Empire, vast and diverse, was intertwined with this industrial strength. Empire and industry fed each other, creating a powerful narrative of progress and civilization. The empire was seen as more than just territory or wealth, it was a symbol of Britannia's role as a leader of modernity, a beacon of culture, law, and technological advancement. Across continents, British missionaries, engineers, and settlers carried the ideas born in industrial Britain to distant lands. Railways sliced through jungles and deserts, connecting remote colonies to imperial centers. Telegraph lines pulsed with messages, shrinking the world and binding it closer to London. Schools and legal systems modeled on British institutions sought to reshape societies, promoting order, education, and governance. This cultural export was a complex force. It brought new technologies, infrastructure, and educational opportunities. It introduced concepts of law, governance, and trade that shaped colonial societies. Yet, it also imposed foreign values and systems on diverse peoples, often disrupting long-standing traditions and ways of life. Missionaries spread religious teachings alongside industrial ideas, believing in a civilizing mission that justified empire. Engineers designed canals, bridges, and factories, transforming landscapes and economies. Settlers established communities, blending cultures but also asserting British dominance. Together, these agents of empire wove a tapestry of influence that reached every corner of the world. This cultural legacy, rooted in industrial Britain's expansion, continues to resonate today. It is a history marked by innovation and transformation, but also by challenges and contradictions. The influence of British culture, law, and technology shaped the modern world in profound ways, yet its impact is still being understood and debated. The story of empire and industrial Britain is one of ambition and complexity. It is a tale of how a nation's confidence in its progress led to a global footprint, changing lives and landscapes far beyond its shores. As factories hummed and steamships sailed, Britain's cultural reach expanded alongside its economic power. The pride in industrial achievement fueled a belief in a mission to spread civilization, a mission that shaped the course of history. In reflecting on this legacy, we see the intertwining of culture and empire, industry and identity. It is a narrative rich with achievement, struggle, and enduring questions about how the past informs the present and future. The impact of industrial Britain and its empire remains a defining chapter in the story of globalization, a chapter filled with both light and shadow, progress and reflection. By the dawn of the 20th century, Britain stood at the pinnacle of industrial and imperial power. The vast networks of factories, railways, and ports sprawled across the nation. This fusion of industrial strength and imperial ambition shaped the course of global politics, economics, and culture for decades to come. This fusion of industrial strength and imperial ambition shaped the course of global politics, economics, and culture for decades to come. The Industrial Revolution was not merely a chapter of technological progress. It was the foundation upon which the British Empire expanded its reach. Innovations in machinery and manufacturing enabled mass production of goods that could be traded and sold across continents. Steam engines powered ships and locomotives, shrinking distances and accelerating the movement of people and products. Control over resources became a central pillar of empire building. Colonies supplied raw materials like cotton, rubber, and minerals, essential for industrial growth. In return, British factories produced finished goods exported back to these colonies and beyond. This intricate system created a web of dependency that reinforced Britannia's global dominance. The wealth generated from industry and trade funded advancements in infrastructure, education, and military strength. Ports like London and Liverpool thrived as hubs of commerce, while cities across the empire buzzed with economic activity. British culture, law, and governance spread alongside goods and capital, leaving a lasting imprint on societies around the world. However, this era of dominance was not without its challenges. Emerging powers such as Germany and the United States began to rival Britannia's industrial capacity and naval strength. Changing political attitudes at home and abroad questioned the morality and sustainability of imperial control. Yet, the legacy of the Industrial Revolution remained central to Britannia's identity and power. The intertwining of technological innovation, resource management, and ambitious expansion demonstrated how a nation could transform itself and reshape the world. It illustrated the dynamic forces behind empire: creativity and control, opportunity and exploitation, progress and conflict. Even as the century progressed and new global realities emerged, railways continued to link distant lands. Legal systems echoed British precedents. And languages bore the imprint of colonial encounters. The Industrial Revolution's impact went far beyond factories and machinery. It forged connections and contradictions that continue to influence the modern world. This story reminds us of the complexities behind progress, how invention and ambition can bring unprecedented growth while also raising profound questions about power and justice. The Industrial Revolution's role in building empire reveals a narrative of human endeavor shaped by both brilliance and challenge. As we reflect on this legacy, we see the enduring power of innovation to transform societies. The British Empire's story stands as a testament to the ways industry and empire combine to leave a lasting imprint on global history, shaping the world we live in today. Thank you for joining this exploration of the Industrial Revolution and its crucial role in the British Empire. This story reminds us how technology and empire have shaped our modern world in profound ways. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep discovering the incredible stories of our past.